Hello Dave, welcome to the testing of your 1UZ FE VVT-i, specifically LS400 98-2000. This is a existing harness tape-up job that we've adapted and given its own fuse box and everything to make sure it's completely independent and a standalone harness. We've got all the gearbox wiring and everything over there. So what I'm going to do first of all is we're going to go through the entire harness so you can see everything, where everything goes. It is really nice and easy and straightforward, but we'll go through the whole section starting from this side all the way down to there. So first of all, like in the original vehicle, obviously all the body plugs, so these three over here, are completely independent of the engine harness over there. You'll see we've got a little 3-pin DTM plug here for 3 wires that we couldn't fit into the fuse box itself to make it all separate, but everything else is completely separate. So this whole section where the fuse box can go and the engine harness can stay away and move away, no problem. Alright, so you've got that over there, and those 3 plugs plug into there, and they come around and they plug into this 6-pin plug here, and this 21-pin plug over here. You've got your 9-pin plug, which is your major functions of the engine itself that you're going to connect up, and we'll go through all of that in a minute. I've got the complete layout of all the plugs and what they connect to and how they connect to it. Then you've got your, what I'd like to refer to as most like the gearbox plug. Obviously it's an auto, there's a bit of auto wiring that goes along with it. And then this is your other harness plug. This is where all the powers and everything go into the harness from there, and that plugs into there. Okay, so that's all of that side over there. Nice and simple and straightforward. Just plug in ECU, plug in fuse box. They're all unique plugs, so you can't plug in the wrong thing into the wrong one. Coming up then you've got your grommet. So that's going to go into your firewall over there, and then it comes along here, and then it's going to break out into this first piece of black plastic where the harness all runs it over here. Now this does have 2 bolt points, so you've got a bolt point, actually with 3, sorry. You've got a bolt point there. Obviously I've got an LS400 engine, so my coolant pipes are in a different place. That's why the harness looks a little bit sort of pushed out there. Obviously in your engine, this coolant pipe won't be here. It'll be over here somewhere, so this can actually push more in. But anyway, you've got a mounting point over there. You've got a mounting point over there, and you've got a mounting point over there. So that's what holds this whole back plastic on and in place. You've got your starter and your knock sensor, your sub harness plug that goes in there. So obviously if you follow that down, you'll see that goes into your starter and knock harness. This is your one. Obviously we've taped it all up inside there, and we'll include pictures at the end of how it looks like underneath. And what I'll do is I'll go through, there's 2 wire colors for the knock. You've got a gray or a white and a black. I'll go through you exactly which one is knock 1 and knock 2. Obviously knock 1 being bank 1 or the left hand side if you're looking from the back of the engine, and knock 2 being on the right bank side over there. Right, so out of this plastic section over here, you've got the starter plug that goes over there, starter knock sub harness. Coming out the back here, you've got your earth strap which bolts in over here. Now the 1UZ uses the M8 holes, not the M6 holes like the 3UZ, but as you can clearly see, you can use the M6 holes no problem at all. But you would be using these holes down here for your earth straps. That's why they're a bit long. You can actually see they'll stretch down to meet over there. Okay. Also coming out the back here, you've got your gearbox and complete harness. So your gearbox harness is made up of your NCO, or I call it input speed sensor, your solenoid plug, your output speed sensor at the end of the gearbox, and then on the other side you've got your selector plug which goes down there. Also coming out here, you've got your Lambda sensor which goes inside there. Now there is a little heat shield that normally sits there. Do keep that in place, because obviously it protects the connector and everything from the heat of the exhaust, so don't remove that and not put it back in again. Very useful for that. Right, so what we'll do is we'll start over this side over here. So coming out the top there, and you'll see another piece of black plastic. That's then bolted down with these 2 bolt holes over here. Starting from the back, coming out here, obviously you've got coil 7 and injector 7. And normally coil 7 comes out there. I move it over there because it makes it really nice and easy to figure out which one goes where. So back hole here, coil 7, injector 7. Next hole along, obviously you've got coil 5 and injector 5. Next hole along, you've got coil 3, injector 3, and you've got your cam sensor for your left inlet cams for the VVT-i. Then you're coming out of the box over there, you've got this which is a noise suppressor, and you should have it bolted on your engine somewhere along here, and that just plugs into there. Following that further down, you've got your next breakout point here, and this is obviously going to be coil 1, injector 1. You're also going to have your VVT-i oil control valve coming out there. Then coming further down, your next breakout point, you're going to have your accelerator position sensor. Remember, this is drive-by wire, so that's your accelerator position sensor over there. And you have your TPS sub harness over here, so you'll see that actually goes down to a TPS sensor, which you can see the little silver thing over there. Coming down here, another breakout there, and you've got your drive-by-wire motor, so that's your drive-by-wire clutch and your positive and negative for your motor. You've then got your front cam sensor, which is coming out there as well. And as you'll see on the motor here, you've got these little holes here. They should have little plastic clips, and the harness will clip into there. And then coming down over here, the harness goes through this little hole, so your aircon pump would normally be here. And then you've got a little hole there, so you're pushing through there. You're coming down through there, through the second hole, and then you're coming out and you're going to the crank sensor. Obviously, I've got an LS400 engine here, so this is not what your one would look like. Your will have the oil filter housing coming out towards the back here. So this wouldn't come out here, it would then come out there and then plug into the oil pressure switch over there. All right. Okay, so that's that side all done. So hopefully that's relatively straightforward. I'm just going to move over to the other side now. So coming to the end of this blocks over here, you've obviously got your earth strap that's coming out there, if you've already been through that. And then at the end of the plastic, you've got your first lot coming out, which is obviously your injector 8 and your coil 8. Coming further along, there's your next breakout point. You've got the connection for the ACIS or acoustic control induction system. Coil 6 and injector 6 over there. Coming further down, your next breakout, you've got the cam sensor for the right bank inlet cam. You've got injector 2 and coil 2. And then coming further along there, and obviously here you've got little bolt holes, so you can use a P-clamp. And over there as well, you can use a P-clamp to hold the harness out here. But coming down there, you've got injector 2 coming out here. You've got coil 2 coming out here. You've got your oil control valve connector coming out there. You've then got your coolant temp sensor coming out there. And in this case, we've added a wire in here for you. I've made it long, so if you need to connect it to anything, this is going to be your temperature. So if you look down there, there's a little bolt hole over there. You can pull that out and put a temperature gauge that'll work with whatever your vehicle requires, or whether you get an aftermarket gauge and it comes with its own temp sensor. That's where you can put that in, and then you can just connect that there and it comes out the other side, which we'll go through in a minute when we go through all the wires. Coming further along, your next breakout here, that's going to be your mass airflow sensor. Now, this is not the mass airflow sensor that you want. This is a 3UZ one. Some of the Crown 1UZ VVT-Is did use this sensor, but you should have, I call it the bullet style, because if you actually look at it, it looks like a bullet underneath. Not this one. That's why you can see the wiring is all different. All right. If you do plug this plug into this sensor, you will short out the intake air temperature sensor, and it'll blow up the MAF, and you can kiss it goodbye. So if you guys are wondering, you can't use this with a 1UZ that is in an LS400. I think the GS400 in America also had the bullet style airflow meter. It had different coils though, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah. So only the Crown is the one that I know of that uses this style of airflow meter. Technically speaking, obviously as you can see here, I am using it. It does work, but obviously this is not an ideal situation. I'm just doing it to test the engine over here, and I don't want to keep swapping it out between 3UZ and 1UZ VVT-i every single time. Coming further down here, we're going to have a breakout down here, and that's going to go off to your alternator plug. So obviously, as you remember, the alternator and the oil pressure switch used to be on a separate harness that ran underneath the engine. We've now incorporated them into the main harness, so you've got everything in one. And coming down here, finally, you've got your Lambda sensor at the back here. So obviously, we're only using the 2 Lambda sensors, just this one on this side and the one on the other side over there. Right, so that's how the harness is completely laid out. Like I said, it is relatively straightforward because there's different breakout points as it goes along. So it's kind of, this can't reach here. And if this goes here, obviously you're stretching it and nothing else will line up. So it's pretty easy to get it all correct on that one. So that should be fine. All right, so coming back to here now, and I'm just going to apologize in advance. It's going to be a really long video, but do watch it all the way through because we're going to go through a lot of stuff now that's really important for you to know on your side. So coming over to the plugs, now we do have 2 plugs. Just going to move that out the way quickly. We've got 2 plugs. Like I said, this one is sort of your main engine function, and this one is related to your gearbox. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run down them, and then I'm going to go through exactly what they do and how you connect them. But this will obviously be given to you, and I've actually already sent you the welcome pack. So you'll have this, but you can refer back to the video if you want any more further explanation. So starting from the top, we've got red. Now obviously I've got my own wire in there to power up the system, but you have a red 14 gauge wire. That's your permanent 12 volt supply. Repeat, permanent 12 volt, not ignition. The ECU needs permanent 12 volt supply to store all its codes. If you connect the red to an ignition 12 volts, every time you turn the key off, you're going to reset the ECU. It's going to make diagnosis an absolute pain in the ass. All right. Then next up, we've got black yellow. So here's your black yellow. That's your starter signal. So that's just a 12 volts from the key barrel. Just as simple as that, and it'll go. This is not powering directly the solenoid. The solenoid is actually worked through a relay. So again, it doesn't need to be a massive cylinder. This is a 20 gauge. You can do a 22 gauge, whatever. It doesn't need to be thick at all. Next up, we've got yellow green. So as I was talking about earlier, that is that temperature wire that you saw hanging loose there. So if you want to connect that to a sensor that's relevant to your actual gauge, by all means, and then it comes out over here. Right, and then next up we have got gray for the fuel pump. So again, I've got that to one side because I've actually got our wire plugged in for our fuel pump setup that we're going to use over there. Next up we've got yellow red. So yellow red, that's your check engine light. Now the LED in your fuse box is your check engine light as well, which I'll show you in a moment when you turn the ignition on. But I've also got it connected here just to make sure this wire is correct. So we've got this dash over here that's going to give us our check engine light to make sure that's all working just fine. Next up we got yellow. Just a solid yellow. That's your tacho signal. That is coming from the ECU, and it's a 4-cylinder signal. So if you need to get a tacho to work with it, just remember 4-cylinder signal, not an 8-cylinder signal. And we've got it hooked up to our cluster over here just so we can see the signal coming through. Bear in mind this is a IS200, so this is looking for a 6-cylinder signal, not a 4-cylinder signal, so the reading will be a little bit low. But don't worry about that, it's just to confirm it is actually coming through and working as it should. Next up we've got black and red, one of the main ones. That's your ignition 12 volts. Now, I do state in here, don't connect it to accessory. If you connect it to accessory, so remember on a ignition barrel, accessory will turn off when you crank it. So the second you go to crank, if you connect it to accessory, the whole system is going to shut down and the car's never going to start. So yeah, please remember, don't connect that to accessory. Make sure that what you connect it to has 12 volts, both with ignition on and when cranking, just to make sure that all works. All right. Next up, we got pink blue. That's your alternator light. So this gives out a ground, and you'll see I've got it hooked up to 2 LEDs over here. So we're going to test that that's all working as part of the test in a minute. Then next up we've got yellow black, and that is your oil light. So that's connected to the oil pressure switch over there. And again, that's one of the LEDs over there. So you can see that one's already lit up because I'm giving it a permanent 12 volt supply. And obviously the oil pressure switch is earthing out. But we will come through and you'll see these will come on with ignition and then go off when we start the engine up. So that's your main engine plug. As you can see, pretty much all of it is related to getting the engine actually physically running. We'll move on to the gearbox plug over here. So there are a lot of wires in here. Now, obviously you don't have to connect everything. We just like to give you guys as many options as we possibly can that's feasible with a standard ECU. So starting from the top, we have got red, blue, and that's going to be over here. And that's reverse. All right, quite important. You need your reverse lights to work. So that's going to give out a 12 volts when you put the gearbox into reverse. Next up, we've got yellow. Now, yellow is PWR mode. So you would have seen on the original car, on the shifter, you had a little switch that you pressed down to go into power mode. You flicked it off and went into normal mode, and you just pressed it momentarily down and it went into snow mode. Okay, so you've got yellow, which is power mode. That just needs to be given a ground via a switch. So it needs to stay to ground in order for power mode to be on. Now, next up is going to be black and yellow. Now, black and yellow is snow mode. All right. Now, this is a little bit different because this is a momentary switch. In other words, you just touch it to ground and it'll go into snow mode. All right. And then obviously what you have to do is then just press like power mode or whatever to get it out of snow mode. All right. So snow mode is obviously reducing the throttle and so on for when you're in snow. And obviously if you turn the key off, it reverts back to normal again. Okay. Next up, we've got red, which is going to be 2. So this provides 12 volts when the gearbox is in 2. Now, we've obviously had a lengthy conversation about this, but basically the reason we give you this is so that you can provide the next wire, which is our yellow with the black, and that is L. So again, just a brief explanation of your shifter. If you look at it, going park, reverse, neutral, drive, sideways to 4, then it went down to 3, and then 2, and then sideways to L. So 4 and L electronic signals that are usually carried out by micro switches inside the shifter. Obviously in this case you're not using the shifter, but we give you the wires anyway. And the other reason we give you 2 and D in order to do this is so that when you had to maybe change gear from say second up to third, obviously L would no longer get power, which is exactly how the Toyota system works as per standard. So you can't have L and 3 having 12 volts at the same time. That is the reason why we give you the corresponding wires in order to use it. So if you're going to put switches or whatever on to do it, then it's just nice and safe, because if you go out of the gear, it's no problem, boom. I normally advise people, if you are going to use switches, I don't know if we spoke about this, but what's really nice is to get the little LED ones that light up. Because it is a 12-volt signal, you can use it with a little LED switch, and that way you can see it out of the corner of your eye. So if you say go into drive and you're towing something and you're going up a hill and now you want to go to fourth, you just press the button for fourth, and it'll gear from fifth down to fourth. But then you forget about it. Whereas the shifter, the standard shifter obviously takes care of it because it moves with the whole shifter, but you'll actually see out of the corner of your eye a little LED saying, hey, I'm in fourth, I'm not in drive, etc. All right. And then, okay, so that's your red and your yellow, black, and that's, so yellow and black is L and red is 2, so those are the two wires that go together. Next up is yellow and red. Now this is kick down switch. Now this is only a European thing, so guys in the US, Japanese models, you do not have kick down. This is only European models that have a kick down switch. So again, nice and simple. You just need an earth via a kick down switch, so you put it like a little micro switch behind the accelerator pedal, and only contacts obviously when you got your foot flat to the floor. Nice and simple, not too complicated to connect up. Next up, we've got blue and red. Now this is D, so this is again, so D and 4. So this will provide 12 volts when the gearbox is in D, and then going down to 4, which is orange. So orange, you're then going to connect via a switch. So from D to orange, and then when you're in drive, you flick the switch, you stay in fourth, boom, and then you can press it off, and then you go back to drive. So we're going to test all of those, and you actually see it on the live data here. Right, next up, number 10 is going to be your white and your blue. I need to correct that, I do apologize. White and blue is your brake switch. So in other words, this gets 12 volts when you press the brakes. Now normally the Toyota system has a 4-wire switch. So in other words, the ECU knows when the brakes are pressed and also when they're not pressed. That's all taken care of in the fuse box itself. You don't have to worry about that. All you've got to do is supply 12 volts to this white and blue from the brake light switch. That's all you've got to do. Nothing more complicated than that. Coming down to number 11, and that is our blue wire over here. Now this is your cruise control switch. Okay, you can use any cruise control switch from, well, either LS400, IS200 Auto, Camrys. I don't know if Corollas came with cruise control, but any sort of thing around this era, so sort of 98 to 2005. Just grab the cruise control switch. Other side of the cruise control switch goes to earth. The other side goes to the blue wire here, and boom, you've got cruise control. Because you're keeping the auto gearbox, all the speed signals and everything from the auto gearbox are coming to the ECU, so it knows exactly what to do. So remember, it is drive-by-wire, so it can obviously quite easily take care of cruise control. It's no dramas there for it. Right, so that is the entire plug there. Again, you will have all of this, so don't stress, but I just go through in detail, so if you have any questions over there. And actually, last but not least, you've got your OBD2 plug in this plug as well. So you'll see we connected up there, so you've got everything there you need to go. You can do diagnostics in the actual fuse box itself, which I will go through with you at the end, and I'll actually show you how to do it. But you do also have OBD2, so you can read all your data from there. Right, so, apologies. Coming over to the testing now. Obviously, we're going to look at things like the dash lights. We're going to check the OBD2 is working. We're going to go through the gear selector. So what I'm basically going to do is I've got my little wire jumper in there. So I'm going to put it into like park, reverse, neutral, drive, 3, 2, and then we'll do like 4 and L through there just to show you that's all working. We'll test the fuel pump via the ECU. So the ECU is controlling the fuel pump. That gray wire is just 12 volts straight to your fuel pump. As you can see, I'm going literally straight from here, straight to a fuel pump in there. Nothing in between, works absolutely fine. Okay. Then obviously we're going to start her up, and part of that's going to be testing the starter, so we know that all works just fine. Then we're going to look at the ACIS, so it's this little valve at the back here, so that's going to shoot down as soon as it starts up. I do have a good video on ACIS systems. If you want to take a look at that, it'll explain exactly what it does, how it works, and what it looks like underneath there. Also regarding the fuel pump, I've got another video explaining exactly how the fuel pump system works. So I will mention now, but Toyota systems do not prime the fuel pump. So don't freak out if you wire everything up and you put the ignition on and you go, oh, I've got no prime. That's perfectly normal. They only activate on the crank signal, like the starter signal. As soon as it gets a starter signal, boom, it comes alive, the fuel pump, and it'll stay running as long as it gets a crank signal from the engine, from the crank sensor on the engine. If the engine stops turning, fuel pump turns off. Cool. Right, then we're going to test the drive-by-wire. Now it's going to be as simple as me just pressing the accelerator, just pulling the little lever there. Okay. Then we're going to go into the OBD2 machine and we're going to test the 2 oil control valves. Now what it's going to do is effectively it's going to retard the cam, so it's going to sound like a big old lumpy American V8. It's going to go blah 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 blah, and I'm going to do one side and the other side to make sure that they're both working, so that's all fine. Then we're going to look at the dash, so we should have a tacho signal coming through there, and we should see that they're nice and coming through. Then we're going to go to each one of the injectors one by one. I'm going to pull them out so you can actually hear the engine misfiring as I pull them out, just to confirm that each and every cylinder is firing as it should. And then we go back and we look through all the codes. So basically, you're going to get all the auto box codes because I don't have an auto gearbox to plug in there. So you're going to get like solenoid 1, 2, 3, 4, SLU, SLN, SLT, and we'll go through all of that in a minute. So that's absolutely fine. So that's basically it. So first thing we're going to do is start by turning the ignition on. So again, nice and simple, black with a red wire. Give it 12 volts, and you probably heard in the background, all the relays are going to start to click there. Everything's going to go on. So as I said, that LED is a check engine light. All right. Coming over here, we've got our check engine light over there. Coming over here, we've got both our LEDs fired up, so we can see that everything is working fine. If you had an oil light and alternator light, charge light on there, they would be lit up now. All right, so that's all the dash lights over there. We're going to go over to the OBD2. Now this machine does take an absolute age to start up, so I've got it already there. So I'll just go into function. We'll go into, not DTC. We'll go into system select, and as you can see, that's picking it up as an LS400. So you can take this car to Toyota when you're done, and they can plug in TechStream and everything will work exactly as it should. Okay, so I'll just go through all of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go through the gear selector now. This is going to be a bit tedious, I know, but yeah, I'm just going to go through and show you that all of them work. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the data list over here. Just going to go into all data. This thing is not very accurate. Let me grab my screwdriver. Right, okay, so first of all, I've obviously got it in park at the moment. Let's find park, neutral, park switch. Oh, while I'm here and looking for it, I do have a video on park neutral switches. Okay, so people always get confused and they think, oh, you need to bridge these two wires here, you know, to make it think it's in park, but you have two completely separate circuits in here. This one where I've got the fuse in, that's actually the park neutral park switch in relation to the starter relay. So with these two bridged here, it will start, or if you have it on your gearbox, if it's in park or neutral, these two sort of terminals over here are connected via the switch on the gearbox itself, and that allows you to start. Now that's got zero to do with what the ECU knows is happening in relation to the gear. All of these other wires here, that is how the ECU knows that it's in park. So if I had to pull this white wire out now and just leave that one in there, you'll see the park neutral park switch goes from on to off. So let me just do that now quickly. Apologies, I'm trying to do this single-handedly. Right, okay. So you can see there I've got it in the blue with the red, that is park. Okay, I've got the fuse in there. So you can see park neutral park switch is on. If I pull that out, that goes to off. But hey ho, look, I've still got the fuse in there. So the two big terminals have nothing to do with the ECU, they're just to do with the starter relay. The ECU gets its 12 volt signals from all the rest of the wires. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it back into park. And you'll see the park neutral park switch will turn on again. There you go. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into neutral. That's the green with the red wire over there. So I know all the colors off the top of my head. I've been doing this for 12 years. Okay, and as soon as I do that, my park neutral park switch goes back on again. Hang on. There it is. Right, okay. So now we're going to go over to drive. That's our green with the yellow. Oh, hang on, let's go into reverse quickly. So we've got park, we'd have park, reverse. And you'll see down here, I'm just going to scroll down to the actual gear position indicators. There you go. Right, so now you can see reverse is on. So that's fantastic. So we're going to go park, reverse. We've been to neutral. So let's go into drive. So again, I'm just bridging the terminals over there. So now you'll see drive is on. Fantastic. So we've got park, reverse, neutral, drive. Okay, then we're going to go into 4. So what I'm going to do now is, referring back to our paperwork here, 4 is going to be orange. So I'm going to grab my orange wire here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into the blue and red, which is this one over here. I'm just going to hold on the screen here. So you see now it says drive, and you see there it's moved to fourth. It says M there, but that's only on the GS 400s in America. They actually had Tiptronic over there. Now what I want you to notice here is, and this is why I said it works if you have the powers coming directly from there. It says that, let's get the drive. Sorry, I'm just trying to ram. Why is it? There you go. Right, so we've got drive on, so we've got 4 on, and if I pull the wire out to give drive no longer 12 volts, say I've moved into third, you'll see fourth goes off. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it into third to imitate that. So let's go into third. You'll see now third is on, fourth is not. So in other words, ECU will never get confused. As soon as you got to drive into third, fourth will turn off. All right, I'm just going to pull 4 out of there now. Right, so now we're in third. Fantastic. So let's go over to 2. So that's going to be over there. All right. So now you see we've got second on. We're going to do exactly the same thing. So refer to our paperwork. L is going to be yellow, black. So we've got yellow, black, and 2 is red. So we're just going to go into red. And as I do, there you go. 2 is red. And yellow and black. Yeah, yellow and black is low. Come on, make contact. There you go. So you see now we've got low, and that's just going to slip out now. Right, so we got low. Let's see if that stays in there. This thing register. Okay, hang on. I do apologize. I'm trying to just force feed 12 volts down here. Come on. Right, so there we're on low, or first gear basically. I'm going to pull 2 out, and we're going to go to 3. So you imagine you're in your gearbox, you've gone from 2, now you're going up to 3, and you'll see straight away third goes on and the other 2 go off. So again, you can't have L and third on at the same time. ECUs don't like that, they freak out, they think, how's that humanly possible? Okay, so that is all the shifter wiring there. So we've gone through park, reverse, neutral, drive. We've done 4 and we've done L, so we know everything is fine. We know obviously that's going to go over there. Now looking at the brake switch over here, we're just going to go into the brake switch and supply that with 12 volts. So I've got 12 volts over here. You're going to hear the relay click. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go into stop switch. There you go, stop light switch. So you see there at the moment that's saying off. So let's go on. Stop light switch is saying off. Stop light switch is now on. Okay, so it's quite important. It's a modern ECU with an auto box. So obviously when it knows the brakes are pressed, it does things like, you know, deceleration, fuel cut, blah, 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 gear down, etc., etc. It's not a 1950s auto anymore, so there are a lot of electronics that do take care of that type of stuff in here. So it is important to connect that. Please don't leave it out. The car drives so much better with that connected on there. Okay, so fuel pump, we can just run into here quickly. And nice and easy. Now it says fuel pump, relay, and fuel pump. Please refer to my video that explains in detail exactly what that means. It just sounds confusing because of the way Toyota do it. Silly. Well, it's not silly, this is the way they call everything. They call the circuit opening relay is actually the fuel pump relay, and the fuel pump relay is just the fuel pump relay to bypass a circuit through a resistor to slow the fuel pump down. Anyway, let's get on track here. So we've got fuel pump. There you go, you can hear the relay click, and I'll see if you can hear the fuel pump. Fantastic. Okay. All right, so we're 29 minutes. I do apologize. I know it's super long, but every time we do an auto, it is incredibly a long way to go around it. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start it quickly. So I'm just going to demonstrate the neutral start circuit. I'm going to put this back into park as well, so the ECU thinks we're in park properly. Okay. All right, let's get that done. Fantastic. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull this fuse out of here quickly, just to show you that when I provide 12 volts to the black and yellow that it doesn't start. So right, I've just pulled the fuse out of there. Okay, now if I take the black with the yellow wire and I give it 12 volts from here, absolutely nothing. Completely dead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fuse back in again. Okay, so now I've bridged the park neutral switch. And if I touch there you go, you see now we're going to start. Right, so let's crack on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do all the starting stuff. So it is going to be really loud because it's got no exhaust, so please bear with me. I will keep talking through it, but just a quick recap. We're going to test the starter. We're going to come over here to check the ACIS valve is working. We're then going to pull the accelerator to make sure the drive-by-wire is working. We're then going to test the VVT-i solenoids via the tech stream. We're then going to look at the tach signal on the clock to make sure that's working. At the same time, we'll make sure like the check engine light goes off, and so do the LEDs and everything for the oil and the alternator. Then we'll run around quickly and pull off all of the injectors one by one just to show you that they're all working. And then we'll come back and we'll go through all the codes, etc. And how to read the codes via the fuse box if you don't have a diagnostics machine. So, time for earmuffs. Right, okay, so nice and easy, black and yellow, 12 volts, and 1, 2, 3, let's go. Okay, fire's up on fine. You can check ACIS is working. We're going to test the drive-by-wire. Okay. We're going to come and test the VVT-i solenoids. Right, I do apologize. I think a lot of these coils are old, so you just get a random misfire or whatever. It's not the actual ECU. We don't get any codes for a random misfire on there. I did buy the coils from someone. It looked like the engine had sat under seawater for about 4 years. But hopefully you saw all the LEDs went out there, the check engine light and everything went out over there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through how to read codes. So the easiest way with the most data is obviously using an OBD2 machine. It is a European ECU, so it should be relatively straightforward. You can get one of those Bluetooth devices and read it through there. I know these can be a bit finicky. Some people do struggle with them, so do make sure the device you does work with it. Obviously, TechStream works as well as my little sort of Toyota intelligent tester. They all work. I know that the Bluetooth can sometimes be hit or miss whether they do work or not. Okay, so in terms of obviously this, you get all the data. So things like engine, coolant, temp, RPM. Yeah, or you'll have speed and everything because you've got the gearbox. It tells you what gear it's in, you know, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so codes you will have is obviously these first two over here, which is bank 1 sensor 2 and bank 2 sensor 2. That's the secondary cats that go through there. All right, don't worry about them. They don't affect performance. They're just there to see whether your catalytic converter is working. And most importantly, on the LS400 in the European market, they do not cause a check engine light. So that is absolutely fine. Okay, obviously you've got all the shift solenoids in there, and that's your SLU, SLT, and SLN, but obviously we've got no other fault codes, so nothing else is causing a problem like a MAF or a coolant temp or anything like that over there. Right, so that's the nice and easy way if you have access to one of those. But if you don't have access to one of those and you are stuck on the side of the road and your check engine light comes on in your car, and then you can tell exactly what's wrong with it just by going through here. So all of these fuses are actually powering circuits. There is an opening here that looks like there should be a fuse. Don't put a fuse in there. That is to go into diagnostics mode. So what you can do is you can take this fuse next to it here, and that's the reason why I use the fuse, just makes it nice and easy. You've got a fuse puller on your box, and you just take that out over there because that's STA fuse, so it doesn't make any difference to the running it, so it's absolutely fine. You just can't start the car when this is out. And as I bridge these two, you'll see the check engine light will go out, and it'll start to read codes. Alright, so you can go 1, 2, that's 2, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's 27, and you got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 29. All right, so as you can see there, it's really nice and simple. All you got to do is put that fuse in there. You read the codes like it's Morse code. You put two digits together, so you'll have a 2 and a 7 is 27, 2 and a 9 is 29. If you had a MAF code for the actual MAF sensor, that would be a 31. If you had an inlet air temperature sensor circuit, that would be 24. Part of the welcome pack I did send you does actually have a complete code listing, so by all means, if you want to print it out, laminate it, stick it in your glove box, keep it with the car at all times, no problem. You'll be able to know exactly what it is that's causing your issue straight away without the diagnostic equipment. You don't need the diagnostic equipment to carry out diagnostics. You just can't look at live data, but if your check engine light comes on, quickly do that. It'll tell you exactly what the fault is. You don't need to plug anything in, and then you can fix it. Second reason I also stick it in as well is diagnostics mode does something else which is quite useful as well, and that is it locks the timing at 10 degrees. So if the engine's not running right and you think it's skipped a tooth and you're not 100% sure and you want to check in 5 seconds, super easy. Timing light on coil 1, which is this one over here. Put that fuse, or get a paper clip in this case because you need that to fire it up. Get a paper clip, quickly bridge those 2 pins over there. Fire her up, and on the actual engine over there's your timing marks. You've got 0, 5, 10 and 15 degrees, and funnily enough there is your mark, so you can just tip sorry, I call it Tipex correction fluid, I think you guys call it here, or a bit of white paint or whatever, just to make that marking visible, and you can actually check timing with a timing light, and it should be locked at 10 degrees. So if it's like 15 degrees or way out, really nice and simple, easy check to do. Okay, so that's another useful tip for you there if you ever want to check timing and you want to make sure that everything is correct with the ECU. All right, so I think that's everything. We're at 38 minutes. I do apologize. It's been a really long video, but it's a lot to go through when it's an auto. Hopefully everything is explained to you now, easily understandable. If you have any other questions, do let me know. You do have the whole welcome pack as well. It explains what all of the fuses and relays do. You've got this where it explains each and every plug, and I've tried to put as much detail in as I can. But if you do have any questions, please let us know. For anybody else, if you've got any questions, please let us know. You can comment down below. We try and get to them as much as we can, or you can message us on Facebook at Phoenix Engine Management. That would tend to be quicker than the comments. I do check them as and when I can, but usually only when I'm posting a video, so that might only be once a week, once every week and a half. Okay. Oh, and sorry, I just wanted to let you know as well, the immobilizer obviously is removed, so you can actually see there now. If I just turn that off, you can see the security light is flashing, and then as soon as I put the ignition on, you'll see the light stops flashing. And obviously you heard it run. I mean, that's simple enough. Okay, that security light isn't wired in to the system. It's just there for testing purposes. All right. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. Dave, we'll get this all off and get it over to you. I know you're anxious to get it in your car, but that's all good. Hopefully everything will be fine on your side. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know. Anybody else, just send a message or comment down below. We'll get back as soon as we can. But thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you again in a bit. Bye-bye.